About citizen-generated data. I'm Francesca Perucci from the UN Statistics Division in the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, coming from New York to Hanju. The title of our session today is Together We Can Do More, Citizen-Generated Data for Inclusive Data Ecosystems. And the together, I think, is very important. Even this session is the result of a great collaboration across many different entities that worked since our first official, let's say, gathering on this topic in Bangkok last year. We've been working very closely together. So the Danish Institute for Human Rights led really the coordination and the organization of all this. And with us, UN Statistics Division, the International Civil Society Center, UN Women, the World Bank, GPSDD, Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, and Paris 21. So large number of entities that have been involved. So citizens contribute to data at all stages in the data value chain. From the moment we agree and decide and define what needs to be measured, to the tools we define together, and most importantly, on how we actually use the data and how we engage with all citizens on to ensure that data have an impact. Just a little bit, this panel today, though, will focus more on the production aspects of citizen-generated data. So one part of the data value chain. As a little background, I just mentioned that we started this conversation to bring together the different actors in Bangkok in November last year. So this is quite new, a new program, only a few months. It's also important to mention that the official statistical community has decided to engage more, let's say, systematically and formally. At the UN Statistical Commission, hopefully many of you know, it's the intergovernmental body that deals with statistical systems in countries. They agreed that to engage, and they emphasize the importance of citizen-generated data, especially to fill data gaps in relation to those groups of the population that are normally more difficult to capture in our traditional data programs. They also supported the establishment of a collaborative on citizen data that will provide a space where we can all share our experiences, our knowledge, and really foster collaboration across these different parts. And I want to emphasize it's really about civil society organization, national statistical offices, academia. There are really some key parts of the data ecosystem that really need to come together if we want this to work. For today's sessions, we'll have a bit of a mix of short intervention from in-person speakers that are here with me, and videos that have been produced that are quite nice, I've seen them, and then a small group discussion on selected topic. And then, as I said, we will have the opportunity to officially, I would say, launch the collaborative on citizen data. But before we go to our discussions and videos, it's my great pleasure to introduce Aishan Fu. I don't think she needs a lot of introduction. I'm sure you all know Aishan. She's the chief statistician at the World Bank and director of the World Bank Data Group. And you've seen her already in the session this morning. So over to you, Aishan.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Okay, I'll use this one. And good afternoon, everyone. It's really a great pleasure to be with you all to discuss this very important topic. I just enjoy how close and how cozy we are sitting together here. So really nice joining you all. I know we have some panelists from Kenya among us, but I would invite you all to join me on a quick trip to the neighboring Tanzania. A couple of years ago, when the Tanzania government realized crucial data gaps were really hindering their effort to mitigate the impact of devastating floods in Dar es Salaam, they turned into non-traditional data sources. I mean, its citizens. As part of a joint project with the World Bank to conduct a flood monitoring and modeling for the city, a team of young professionals and students collected soil samples from over 640 strategic points and recorded over 600 different soil types around the city, providing data that have also been made open and freely available for public use. This project, we have called it Tanzania Urban Resilience Program, utilized local knowledge, engaged citizens, and also ensured decision makers had accurate information to design their local solutions for the basin, all without bringing expensive consultants, but relying on their own citizens. Similar such citizen-led data initiatives have been also helped in solving other real-world challenges in Tanzania and around the globe, such as mapping floods and rockfall-prone zones, georeferencing unplanned communities, surveying tourism and infrastructure need, as well as other areas lacking critical data from the usual sources. So by really engaging citizens directly in data collection, this project designs were really benefited from their data collection and data sharing activities. And the project, hence the design, have provided local government and citizens in the community with very critical information they need to make informed and effective decisions and to help the community and also to help protect the environment. So it's really in such spirit we are actively engaged in promoting such citizen-involved knowledge generation. It's really what's at the center of what we call citizen science, which is also a pillar of the now emerging very fast the thinking around open science. So I'm really very proud to say that beyond being an early champion for open data and open access among multilaterals, the bank has also been supporting initiatives that really rely heavily on citizen-generated data. And recently, we have also put out the landmark World Development Report 2021 Data for Better Lives. At the core of it is the proposal of fostering the transformation towards integrated national data system, which really is based on engaging with different stakeholders from civil society, private sector, and more importantly, the public in the whole data cycle, from data generation to data sharing, data use, and so on and so forth. So with this, I'm really happy to join you all today. We wanted to really see how the different practitioners in this regard have been generating new lessons learned and new good practices so that we can really learn from each other and collectively to really make sure that system-generated data become a critical part of the fast-evolving data ecosystem that will support our development in all its dimensions. So just with that, I don't want to say more. I just really want to listen. So thank you, Francesca.
Thank you so much for your great opening remarks and inspiring. I think if we are ready now, I'd like to share the video.
后台的老师，第一个视频请播放，谢谢。
Citizen-generated and community-driven data plays an absolutely vital role in a robust, sustainable, and inclusive national data ecosystem.
Citizen-generated data collected by civil society organizations can provide more granular and community-level perspective compared to official statistics produced by national statistics offices.
We see that citizens react quickly. They're able to collect data that's not easily accessible to national offices and to data collection teams.
And it provides the access to data that NSOs do not have the capacity, the finances, or the logistical wherewithal to be able to provide.
As a director of a national statistical office, I can say we need the collaboration. Why? Because NSOs cannot do everything. And if we are describing a society, we need to represent everyone that belongs to it and with every needs.
Within a large population like India, about 40% of the population is officially recognized as marginalized and minority communities. The national statistics, being infrequent and sample-based, lack adequate information on these communities.
The world continues to lack the full picture of the marginalization and discrimination against indigenous peoples.
Citizen-generated data has the potential to collect realities at community level, as well as the needs and situations of vulnerable groups and minorities.
It fills the gaps, the data gaps that we find, especially for those groups most left behind, those groups that are marginalized, such as persons with disabilities.
I think it's also very important for realizing the SDGs and also the Leave No One Behind principle.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video. Next, I mentioned to you the sort of, how we started this discussion and this work on citizen-generated data. And I mentioned the meeting in Bangkok a few months ago, and also the results of the discussion of the Statistical Commission. So to offer a little bit more of information about that process and those important steps, I'd like to introduce Aoi Chen, also from the UN Statistics Division. She is the coordinator of the Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Surveys. And I like to mention that because we've been talking about data integration. And it's important to keep in mind that with these new data processes and the promotion of new data sources, it's always important to think in terms of how they can be integrated into the overall data program in the country, and how they eventually the data that we produce can be better utilized if they can be integrated with other existing data collection programs. So over to you, Aoi.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Francesca, and thanks everyone who is here, who are here. I would like just to walk us back, and it's a very short history. And since November, we've been working on citizen-generated data with our partners for a while. But it was in November last year we had a UN expert group meeting. Can you go to the next slide, please? 下一页，谢谢。哦，对不起，是我。Yes, so November last year in Bangkok, we had about 15 to 20 countries and with national statistical offices and civil society organizations, academia, and joined together to really discuss on how to bring citizen-generated data into the cycle data ecosystem. So out of the meeting, there are two things that were really highlighted and then brought up by experts over there. The first thing is, what are we talking about? So the essence is really we need to identify a framework on citizens' contribution to data, on the citizen-generated data. What are we talking about? What's the concept? How we define it? What are the boundaries? And also, there have been a lot of discussions on quality of citizen-generated data. So how do we come up with the quality assurance framework or quality assurance elements how do we include that in the overall framework? And how do we bring other data sources together so we can integrate them together? And then there was discussion on how do we move forward as a community that includes all partners. And there was a recommendation from the expert group meeting to establish a collaborative of citizen data that Francesca has just officially launched that will systematically and bring all partners together, CSOs, national statistical offices, other ministries, aligned ministry within the national statistical system, academia, and citizens that are outside of this, all citizens. And for us to share knowledge and experience in addressing key challenges, such as quality and concept and definition, and also identify what areas that need capacity building, and how do we work together to provide tools and guidance. Sorry. Yes. And And then, as Francesca has mentioned, in the Statistical Commission this year, in February, March, the Commission strongly supported this area of work, and they recognized the usefulness of citizen-generated data to fill data gap and also really reflect the reality of less visible population groups and marginalized population groups to make our data more inclusive. And they supported the establishment of the collaborative on citizen data. And then this is just some pictures we had during the commission and the formal debate and also the side events at the commission. Lastly, we have already started as a community together, working together on the objectives of the collaborative. So the objective is really to provide a space for everyone to share knowledge, resources, and experiences. In addressing key challenges, let's bring all the good examples and something that worked, something that didn't work, could be related to concepts and definitions, quality issues, ethics, what areas that needs capacity building, how do we make a lot of how the case studies more sustainable, really making them part of the data ecosystem, not just one-time trial. And also to foster collaboration. We already see that a lot, as you can see from all the partners who have been working together, that really help all of us work together. And to have all the discussions among experts from different communities. It's not just from national statistical offices, but from all data communities. And provide a platform for advocacy purposes and mobilization, resource mobilization. And really lastly is to identify specific areas that needs further methodological work, guidance, and then so for the collaborative work together towards that. And we do have another expert group meeting planned in July. We really zoomed in on the framework. What do we want to talk about? What do we want to cover in the collaborative? And in July, Copenhagen. With that, I would like to hand over to Francesca. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Aoi. For that background, I think it's important that we think of how we can work with both the official statistical community and all the other partners and then channel our conclusions and recommendations back to the Commission. Next, I'd like to introduce McDonough George Obudo, who is the Director General of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, who will talk about their experience with citizen-generated data. Over to you, McDonough. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you are. As I've been said, I'm McDonough George Obudo, Director General of Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. I'm happy to be here to discuss this issue of the citizen-generated data. A few points that I would say. One is that from 2013 in Kenya, we started realizing that the data needs would be very high. And that was after devolving our government system, where we have the national government and then the county government. And there are 47 of them. So it means that we needed to generate data that would be able to meet the needs of the other level of the government. At the same time, in 2015, when the SDG goal came in, again, we realized that it required even much more data, which is seriously disaggregated. And so to cope up with this, we looked at our situation and realized that as a bureau, which is actually responsible for the statistical production in the country and even the dissemination of it, did not have the capacity really to have all that done. Why not the capacity? Not enough personnel to do that, and no enough resources, financial resources to ensure that we are able to cope up. And so even in terms of infrastructure, then we are also limited. So that means that we needed to look beyond our normal sources of data. And the normal sources would be the surveys that would do from one point to another. But again, those are also based on when resources are available. And the census, which of course we have faithfully undertaken every 10 years. That is a very big achievement that the country has made. We have never missed a census on the particular census day since 1969. So, so that is a good source. But then we are also depending on the administrative data that are being generated from time to time. This kind of information requires also big personnel to do that, but again, we have always tried to manage that. Now, how about what the data that we are not able to address from those three main sources? We had to look around and see that there are quite a number of other players in the system that are producing data, and particularly the civil society, and that is the non-state actors. And so it was a question of now, how do we work together? We needed some arrangements, and of course, there are institutions that came in to help us do that. Particularly the GPSDD came in handy to help us on that, followed by the Paris 21. And now, one concern that you'll have immediately would be, what is the quality of that data? Because from the from the bureau side, we have the systems that would help us go through step 1, step 2, until the very last one in a coordinated manner. And so at the end of the day, we are sure of the quality of what comes out. But now we're delving into data that we were maybe not part of. And so we do not know how that process was undertaken. And that means other than getting the civil societies to work with, we also needed to look at how that data was generated. And so that means we used the Act, our Statistics Act 2006, which was amended in 2019, that provided for the Bureau looking at all the data sets that are produced outside the system. And if after going through a process, we find it fit for use, then we would declare it so. That means other than production of official statistics, we are also able to authenticate statistics produced from other sources as official statistics if we are satisfied that the processes followed would meet the quality that the government would consider as statistics for use. And so we were able to come up now with the criteria of looking at that kind of statistics. And basically what we did first was to come up with the Kenya statistical assurance framework, which then within it we embedded a small program on it, looking at the 6 element of the quality of data. We looked at the 6 elements, and then for each one of them, we looked at now if we have this kind of statistics, for example, timeliness. How do we rate it when this data was being produced? High, low, so high, medium, low, and then 0. Now, so for high, we gave it 3. For medium, we gave it 0.2. And for low, we gave it 1. And 0, of course, is 0. So we'll go through the process of looking at what has been produced from number 1 up to number 6 and awarding marks so that we are able now to do the average. If the average is less than 1.5, then we say that kind of statistics cannot be admitted for official use. If we find that it is higher than that, then we are able to admit such kind of statistics and also have it on our website. We declare it as official statistics and have it on our website for use and guide the users. And of course, for any of those criteria, if something gets to 0, then it means that we are not any element getting to 0. It means that we just stop at that point. We cannot go beyond that because then it is far from meeting what would be required. So that is the process that we went through, and now we have had a number of institutions bringing a number of civil societies bringing their statistics. We are able to go through them and admit the same or reject. And that has also helped us to respond to the needs of getting a number of SDGs indicators to report. Now, it is so demanding that we are not able to meet it as a bureau on our own. But you'll find a civil society working in a particular county or two or three or a number of regions producing statistics at that level, which then the bureau was not able to do. So if you are able to get that kind of statistics and go through that process that I've mentioned, then it adds value to the whole process, because then the country is able to get statistics really to report. And I'm happy that my sister is here from groups that we have also been working with together. I'm sure she'll be able to confirm what the journey that we have walked as a team, because we have been a number of us going through that process. So that is what basically we have done as a country, and we are moving to another level, because you see now the technology now makes it very easy for civil society to do their work. Fortunately enough also that the Bureau has also been involved in a number of activities. We are brought on board to assist here and there, and that is something that we are able to do. So when we get to that kind of a process, it is much easier to get credible statistics that we are able to report. Now, that comes from the non-traditional approach that we have been used to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, McDonald. This is a wonderful example of collaboration between the National Statistical Office and the civil society organization, but also you went well beyond that, and very few countries are at that stage where you can really include those data as part of the official statistics that you have on your system, on your website. So great, and my hope is that as we have more experiences like in Kenya, we can then feed that framework that we have agreed to develop, like it was requested also by the Statistical Commission to have a framework for citizen-generated data based on these experiences and considering all the data quality aspects. So before we show another video, I'd like to invite Linh Nguyen, who is the Executive Director of the Management and Sustainable Development Institute in Vietnam, to offer some remarks. Over to you, Linh.
Thanks so much. And hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm very honored to talk about the student-generated data for inclusive data system in Vietnam. And I would like to show some kind of the examples of how we can work with citizen-generated data in Vietnam, though it's really a new one. Yes, I will not talk further about citizen-generated data definition, because many other speakers talk about that. So I just would like to share that last year in 2022, Live the One Behind Partnership Vietnam with the support of ICSC, and also currently also have the support of UNSD. Also conduct several projects relating to citizen-generated data, and we also did with a kind of our pilot data surveys with 3,015 samples of vulnerable peoples in Vietnam, including NGOs, children, youth, women, people with disability, ethnic minority, and also LGBTIQ through Vietnam in both urban, rural areas, and also mountainous areas. It includes the participation of 7 NGOs through Vietnam. So that's because we also work working fields in different provinces in Vietnam, so we can make it happen. So with only 3,015 samples, however, I think as we did try our best, because we have some kind of vulnerable groups that's very difficult to outreach. For example, ethnic minority. So even the questionnaire have to translate. In some way, we also have to use the interpreter so that the ethnic minority can understand. We also have to design the kind of very children-friendly scorecards with the children by coloring so that they can discuss, and also with people with disability, for example, blind people, and also deaf one can also join in. So I think that with the 3,000 sample, it's maybe a very small with the kind of statistic research, but with citizen-generated data, it's a kind of great effort. Because we don't have much time to share some kind of the findings, so I have some kind of a QR code here, so that you can read it in English. Maybe later on, I will also say this. Oh, okay, just a minute, some kind of you scan. And also, like I just like say some kind of interesting things like through our survey and also our experience. So first one is relating to three interesting findings. There is so much difference between the perceptions of citizen and the government evaluation. Some SDG, especially SDG number 4 relating to education, where number 8 and number 13. I think it's also some kind of very important things that we have to address when we talk about citizen-generated data, because this is issues by the citizen, and also like reflect the citizen perspective. So I just like want to give you a kind of very quick example. So please, like this part of the whole, please think that you are the government, and this part is the UN. And this one, half of them must think place as a CSO, NGO, and the other are the citizen. Please think like about some kind of findings that we find. Because like the government of Vietnam, when evaluating the SDG number 4, we are nearly achieved SDG number 4 with many achievements in SDG, especially the SDG number 4.1, the indicator number 4.1 relating to the enrollments of the student to the secondary school. So please think about that. And we also have an ES card, like relating to Vietnam SDG tracker, and they also recognize that achievement. So please, UN, you think about that. You recognize the government. CSO and citizen, especially the children, think that no way. We are still in the middle of only like kind of 3.4 mark among 5. We are only in the middle. The education is not good life as much as the government's evaluation. And they said that like blind student, they cannot like go to secondary school because there is no bright books. These people don't have a sign language translation. Ethnic minority student, the school is very far from where they live. So that's it. Also, like as a secondary school, they have to go to work in the field. Many girls also forced to marry at very early age. So relating to the number, so please like play a role and think about it. So what's happened with a kind of different perspective in this way? Well, it's as the Vietnamese government, when they reach this kind of the statistic, do they think that, wow, we would like to criticize them and also decrease the achievement that the governments may achieve? No, that's not, right? Because this is citizen-generated data, and that we would like to reflect the real voice, the real perspective of the citizen. And for example, and maybe the number of people, the number of samples is small, and also it's like only like kind of around like kind of 10% of the population, for example, but their voice, their expectations must be count, and it also reveals how we cannot achieve fully the SDG if we don't address some kind of voice of citizen, some kind of the gaps that makes people left behind, and we cannot fulfill the SDG. Yeah, I think yes, I have to be quick. And I also talk about some kind of the commit, and also there is also very interesting that when we evaluating doing the citizen-generated data survey, the vulnerable people would like to contribute to the process. They don't want just like vulnerable groups that benefits from the process, but also would like to be the contributor in the process. Yeah, because like the other speaker talked much about the most challenging thing already. So I also not mention further relating to sample size and data quality, relating to different methodology to the different group, and how the citizen generated data can be heard and count. Okay, so I also like going to some kind of final slide relating to 3 key lessons learned. Thus, we have to understand that this is not only the data collection, but also citizen empowerment and engagement process. And we need much resources and efforts in investing without the support and with the support of different stakeholders, strong partnership. Yeah, I think that's, oh, sorry. I think that's like in this way, if the government would like to do it, we must do it in the partnership with NGO and also academia and private sector, and of course, the citizen, especially the vulnerable one. And also, citizen-led process. We have to think that it can lead to the root cause solution and also sustainable change in the community, in the grassroots level, not only in the paper. And go to the final recommendation. Please recognize citizen-generated data and roles of citizen and NGO in the process. We need the developing toolkit and apply by multi-stakeholder to collect and use citizen-generated data, and of course, like organize more citizen discussion and dialogue to understand each other. So that's not only the data, it's a data for policy making process. And some kind of final message, I think that it's really a kind of very challenging task. However, if we would like to address the real cause, the root cause, also would like to ensure that we can fulfill the SDG and leave no one behind, it's worthy to do this. And the partnership must be built on mutual trust, ownership, and acknowledgement of each other's roles. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lynn, and I hate to have to rush you through that because you have so much to share, and especially your recommendations, I think, are very important based on your experience. So I hope everybody took note of that. So we'll share now another video. Over to you.
第二个视频，谢谢后台的老师。
Since 2018, we've been involved in citizen-generated data. We have trained over 800 young volunteers from marginalized communities, 60% of them being women.
The Indigenous Navigator is a unique framework for and by indigenous people that monitors the level of implementation of the human rights and the fundamental freedom of indigenous people. This framework provides evidence to advance indigenous people's advocacy to get their rights implemented at both local and national level. This kind of comprehensive information is not produced by National Statistics Office.
International Institute of Rural Reconstruction developed a CGD guideline for production, dissemination, and the use of CGD.
We have used it to mobilize resources to advance reform in the area of discrimination, hate crime, and domestic violence.
I think one of the important things we have done is help 35 extremely marginalized, invisible communities to gather their data on over 20 indicators of public provisioning.
We conducted the Leave No One Behind data collection methodology of using focus group discussion, informative questionnaire, and views of marginalized groups. The data collected has been compiled together. It gives salient issues that are hidden. The information will be used to develop a policy brief and program to address the needs of marginalized groups for the future.
Some of these data sets have passed the quality criteria, and therefore KNBS has managed to upload this data for use by government and other institutions to monitor a number of goals, a number of agenda, and therefore this is one big achievement that we've had in Kenya as far as data is concerned.
Another example is from World Vision Bangladesh, where a project funded by USAID was implemented called Navojatra, in which vulnerable groups and the marginal groups from the community participated in the citizen voice and action processes, and their views and perspectives were incorporated through scorecard methodology and processes, which led to improvement of services in their communities.
Thank you. So I mentioned in the beginning the important role played by the Danish Institute for Human Rights in pulling all this together and also in launching this area of work with us in Bangkok a few months ago. So it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Sayonara Res, who's from that institute. Over to you.
Thank you, Francesca. And for full disclosure, I would have hoped that our colleague from Kenya, from the National Human Rights Commission in Kenya, could be here speaking. This is a very last-minute replacement that will not be fair to their work, but I will try to speak a little bit of the work that they are doing in Kenya as a national human rights institution, as such ours in Denmark and theirs in Kenya, in trying to support citizens in getting their data more visible and also more used in practice. So in Kenya, they have been working on one of the SDGs that right now have 0% declared at the global monitoring level, that is the SDG 16.10.1. And I know that you all have your SDG indicators by heart there, but just to remind you of this indicator is the one that is trying to monitor the situation for human rights defenders, journalists, trade unionists. So it measures killings and attacks and other harmful attacks against those groups who are defending rights. And there is, as I said, 0% monitored at the global level right now. So what national human rights institutions, also with support from institutions such as the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, we are also involved in that work as the Danish Institute for Human Rights, is trying to galvanize the energy in countries to bring that data to the surface. This is one of the issues that we know. There is a lot of data out there collected by civil society. There are some of that data recognized by, for example, the special rapporteur on the situation of human rights defenders. But as I said, when it comes to official monitoring, both declared by countries, but also declared to the SDG monitoring at global level, there is nothing there yet. So the process in Kenya right now, the Kenya National Human Rights Commission has a memorandum of understanding with the National Statistical Office, and together with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and the methodology that the OHCHR has developed for that, is gathering data from civil society and is going to support the national process in validating that data so that it can then be incorporated into the data of the National Human Rights Commission, and from there also be used at national level and for global monitoring. So that's a very impressive work. It's quite pioneering as well. We know that the Philippines is in the trajectory also to develop same methodology for data collection and support of the use of data produced by citizens also on these issues. And then if I can mention just one other example of how us national human rights institutions are also trying to support this work. Us at DIHR, which is the Danish Institute for Human Rights, we have developed and supported the development of some data collection tools, which supports actors out there to collect the data based on surveys and methodologies that have been developed based on the commitments that countries have made to implement the human rights instruments. So one example of that, and you have heard a couple of the implementers of that project, is the Indigenous Navigator, which is a tool that has developed by and with and for indigenous peoples, which monitors the implementation of their rights based on the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. This is a tool that can be used at national level, at community level also, and the methodology can be developed together with the citizens, with the communities, and also with the statistics offices. And right now we are also in a very pioneering process in Nepal to do the process of development of the methodology for a second phase of data collection on this tool for indigenous peoples, together with the National Human Rights Commission and with the National Statistical Office, exactly to be able to agree on the methodology before the data collection happens, so that that data can be better incorporated afterwards into the national processes, can be utilized both for reporting from the National Human Rights Commission, for example, but also the data can be observed by the National Statistical Office. So just to mention a couple of examples of how national human rights institutions are trying to come to the forefront as well to support the efforts done by citizens in collecting data on the situation of those most vulnerable, most marginalized on different areas of their work. I will not extend myself more than this. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Francesca. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Sayonara. I think we now know that Kenya is definitely a champion in advancing this agenda, this area of work. So it's now great that we have also an opportunity to hear from the civil society side and Frida Gituko as the Executive Director of Roots Kenya. So over to you.
Thank you, Francisca. Good evening, good morning to all the audience. I hope you don't get bored listening to Kenyans. I am very delighted to be participating in this session, and I'm happy, of course, to be seated next to my DG, the Director General. Thank you, DG, for your leadership, especially on civil society partnerships with the Bureau. The journey of roots in citizen-generated data was inspired by gender data gaps, because we are gender equality and women empowerment organization, and we work with a constituency of grassroots women across the country. So data is one of those assets that helps us to drive our mandate on advocacy, and we would constantly find ourselves in need on data on time use. You know how much time women use to fetch water, energy, data on violence against women, and so forth. So we, 10 years ago, we embarked on a process of collecting this data. We work a lot at the subnational level. The DG mentioned that our country is devolved, so we have 47 county governments, and we work a lot at the local level with those subnational governments. So we would organize our members to go out and collect data on issues that directly affect them, and e.g. on access to household water. And they would use those data sets and the report they develop out of it to negotiate with public water companies for more access to water. They use that data to negotiate with the policymakers at the local level for more budget allocation, for appointment of women in committees, you know, in decision-making positions. But as we continue to do this work, we realize that we are not the only civil society organization that is collecting data and using it for advocacy, that there is a strong, small and growing community of CSO in the country that is doing similar work. And so we started forging together at the country level, talking to each other, sharing the data sets that we had then. And one of the things we agreed on is that there is a need for us to engage, of course, with the National Statistical Office. And so, of course, with a lot of exchanges and dialogues, the National Statistical Office was open to engage with the civil society, and that's how our journey of collaboration started. Initially, it would be ad hoc, you know, where you meet in an event, you're presenting your data, the Bureau is presenting its own data, you share and go home. But that process has evolved to what we've all desired. One is that the Bureau created space and a structure, in a structure that we are able to engage more consistently. There was the establishment, of course, of an interagency committee where groups sit. This one deals with gender statistics, and we represent civil society there together with the SDG Kenya Forum. And lately, they have also established what we call the Technical Working Group on Citizen-Generated Data. And so this kind of institutionalizing the engagement is very important, and it's every time I'm interviewed, it's one of those things that I share with other people who are interested in doing similar work, that putting together in structure where you can engage more systematically is a precondition for success. Through that space, what have we been able to do? Of course, we have been able to develop that the quality criteria that the DG talked about. We spent an entire 5 or 4 days together with the Bureau, coming up with the criteria, debating. Of course, we don't always agree, so it would be wrong to create an impression that we always agree. It's a lot of negotiation. When we were talking about credibility, you can imagine the debate between a National Statistical Office and civil society organization trying to debate the credibility of our institutions. But eventually we came up with a definition of how would that credibility look like when we are talking about timeliness of data, The Bureau, of course, is insisting that timely data need to be available within 1 year of the measurements. If it is 2 years, this is the scoring that we are going to give it. So those kind of negotiation. But I'm happy to say after a lot of discussion, we were able to come up with a quality criteria. And we've moved beyond that because as a country, we've also mapped who are these citizen-generated data producers. We are more than 63 groups, and this is growing. There was an inventory tool that was developed by the Bureau, and it was sent out to us. GROOTS was one of the recipients. We were asked to fill in the data sets that we have so that they can be examined, and that process went on. One of the organizations called Tuaweza, I understand that their data was able to meet the pass mark. And so this is a journey, it's a process. As we develop these criteria, as we share, we are also learning, even as non-state actors. And the Bureau is also learning from us. We have gone further ahead to form now that committee, the Working Committee on Citizen-Generated Data, and come up with the terms of reference. That committee consists of both governments and non-state actors, and that's quite important. Some of the terms of reference that we've agreed together is that the committee would map out what are the existing data gaps that CGD should fill, because we do not want to duplicate what can be satisfied by official statistics. We will continuously map who are the producers of CGD. As a country makes progress, we imagine that those actors will keep on increasing, and that is what we want. So we'll continuously be mapping that and creating an inventory of those actors. Of course, the quality criteria, I would say it's a living document. There are things that we will learn as we use this data. Perhaps we will need to review it as we move on. So those are some of the tasks that this working group will be undertaking. And because of that progress that we've made as a country, I believe that is why also UNSD has reached out to us. So both myself and I did see staff from the Bureau and other organizations were able to participate in the interviews and the consultations that UNSD is doing on the collaborative, and we hope that the experience for Kenya is going to be able to inform the global framework. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frida. That was very interesting. We don't have a huge amount of time, but I'd like to open up for questions, both from the audience here and the remote audience. Yes. We have a microphone? Yeah. Otherwise the online colleagues cannot hear you.
Thank you so much. I think this session is very inspiring, and I also personally feel very encouraged because I think the citizen-generated data can definitely meet the data gap, especially for the underrepresented groups. But my question here is that I hear one keyword as a boundary. So as a nutritionist working in the food data for a long time, for example, when we think about the diet data, probably it's less sensitive. But how about for example, the food price data? So if I remember, there is a program that citizens can report the food prices using Twitter or in the Twitter system, but especially from the government perspective, do you think this will be a conflict with the inflation, for example? So when things come, and even the health data, nutrition health data, that will be related to the personal privacy issues. So what do you think in your experience? What do you deal with this? Have you met this kind of problems, or how do you deal with that? Thank you so much.
Actually, I've been monitoring the chat, so there are 2 questions from the online crowd. Let me just read them out. There's a question from Donald Robertson saying, citizen-generated data is an exciting novel source of data. And how would you compare the strengths and weaknesses of it against other novel sources, for example, satellite imagery or AI? And I think that's a general question that each of you could answer. Then another question comes from Nathaniel Don Marquez, and it's, what are the concrete next steps to operationalize the collaborative on citizen data, particularly at the country level? Maybe also a question to Howie in that regard. Sorry for that. And one question from me, and I think addressing all those of you who actually work with citizens and who produce citizen-generated data. So it's, I guess it's Frida, it's Lynn, and to some extent also the national partners of the Danish Institute for Human Rights. What does it mean practically for you that there's now an open space at the global level talking about citizen data and trying to operationalize it in a framework? And how far will that impact your work at the national level?
Thank you very much. I'm Alexandre Barbosa from the Brazilian Network Information Center. Well, I'm really very excited with this idea, and congratulations with all the speakers. My question is related to this framework that finally I hope that we're going to have a framework that integrates different source of data, like traditional survey data source and with citizen-generated data. To make this integration, how this framework will guarantee that citizens would provide data that can be integrated.
I think I take one more here in the front, and then unfortunately I think I have to go back to the speakers, the panelists. Oh, one more there. Okay.
Thank
Gender
you.
balance.
Excellent session. I wanted to find out how can you address possibilities of bad actors that can manipulate these kind of data, especially with deep fakes out there, and also various other biases that can be injected into the corpus of data that you collect. So that's something that I'm actively looking into to make sure that whatever we are collecting is really unbiased and well guarded. Thank you.
My question is also on the same line. This is Hemraj from National Statistics Office of Nepal. Being the custodian agency of national level data, National Statistics Office are always open to use the different set of the data generated by different stakeholders. But the issue of the quality arises sometimes. For example, when the citizens, particularly the non-state actors, they will go into the community and then start asking questions that are you poor or not, with a single question. Are you poor or not, or are you employed or are you unemployed, that type of questions, and then they will start analyzing based on that type of the information, then what to do in that case. My question with the plenary is that who monitors this methodology, who monitors this quality generated data from the citizens?
Thank you. Sorry to rush you, but we are already over time. One last question, really quick, really quick.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Anita Yewane from UNDP Nigeria. And I'm really glad to hear from Kenya. I just wanted to ask that how long does it take for the Bureau of Statistics to authenticate the data from the CSOs? Is it prioritized? Does it take a lot of time? Because I know sometimes with government agencies, you have a lot of bureaucracy and then it takes a while and the data is no longer valid. Secondly, after authentication of the data, is the data hosted on the Bureau of Statistics site for a larger population to have access to it? Thank you.
Thank you. So since we don't have a lot of time, I see a lot of interest and a lot of questions still that you would like to pose. I encourage you to have some bilateral discussions with all of us, Peter, Sayonara, all the panelists, and we can dig deeper. But before I close, I'd like to give a chance to all panelists to pick the questions. We have some more on the practical steps, how you do the work at the national level, some more related to the overall framework. Maybe I'll start from Lynn and go this way. Really quickly, just pick one or two that you would like to address.
Okay, thank you so much. I find the question very interesting. So things like I can talk about some kinds of the step in the national level. That's give example from Vietnam. So in fact, like when we did the citizen-generated data, like we also would like to bring the people voice heard and also count in the policy making process. So that's we also try to engage the Vietnamese government at the beginning. And though it's really a new thing, and we are lucky that like the Vietnamese government also engaged in this process, and we took the opportunities that this year, Vietnam will do the voluntary national review. So they also need the data. the data from multi-stakeholder, including NGOs and also the citizen. So we engage actively in this process. That's not them go to us to ask for the information and data, but we take the kind of the roles to actively engage in this process. And I think that's like, you can look forward to the voluntary national review of Vietnam this year. So that's, I think that's the global pressures, and if we have a framework, global framework for this, is we create at least the invite space for the organization in the local level to promote the citizen-generated data. One more thing that's relating to the data quality. So yeah, I receive a lot of questions relating to this. Please remember that citizen-generated data is not only about the data, about the number, about the representativeness number. 3,000, 2 million, 3 million, or 30 million, that's enough for you if you account for the statistics. So please remember that. It is an aspect of the life. It is the voice of your citizen. It's an empowering process, engagement process, and also like ensure that your people, your citizen voice heard and count. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Sayonara. 30 seconds.
So I will choose the hardest question. Who controls the methodology?
The first people.
So I think one of the marvelous things about working with citizen-generated data is to rebuild our thoughts in the way that we see the shared responsibility over creating data in a country. So who creates the data comes also with this work. It's one thing that Haishan mentioned today. Data has to inspire trust in the panel this morning. And that got me thinking as well, because this whole process has to be co-created together. The responsibility has to be shared, and everyone involved has to be able to give away also a little bit of space so that we can give the room for citizens to generate data based on collaborative work, on a process that builds trust, that comes from solid methodology, where the statistics office is also involved at some stage in that work, and that we also dedicate resources and capacity for the statistics office to do that, because we know we are asking too much as well. But it needs to happen so that we can get there. Thank you. Aisha.
No, please go.
No, this is really incredible. I think this is really the spirit of the forum, is this in this frontier that we work together to explore. And I think all those pioneering experiences really made it very clear. In this, to really maximize the potential of citizen-generated data, we need to change our mindset. We need to take some risk. We need to be willing to fail in order to continue to advance, and this requires really collaborative innovation together. I just really enjoyed what the point you made. It's not just about generating the data, it's really about engaging with citizens and give them a voice to inspire trust. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll respond to just a few questions very quickly. One is on the food prices. I think we also need to be very careful what kind of statistics that we are taking out there, because if you just go asking about food prices and saying that these are the prices and you want to blow it out there, you'll get it wrong. One, in CPI, there is the rural component and there is the urban component. Which one are you reporting? Next is what kind of a basket are you using to compute your CPI? Very important. And that is a long process, because we have to get to know, you'll need to do a household budget survey for you to get to see what kind of household goods and services are people consuming. You'll use principal component analysis to eliminate some and get the best that you are able to use. So on that, it is quite a process which is not easily done out there. You require a Bureau of Statistics to deal with that. And even when you get to urban, there is we have different classes of urban, and food prices are different in different setups of the urban. You have the upper class, you have the middle, you have the low class. You'll talk of the same item, but you find that the prices are actually different depending on the environment where you get it. So those are processes that must be taken into consideration. So you don't just, so you have to be careful with what kind of information you are getting out of the CGD. The second one is on the use of satellite imageries. Actually, this is a process that we are, as a Bureau of Statistics, we are on, and we have already we have produced quite a lot of information on satellite imageries. It's a question of now putting them together with the data. Capacity building is ongoing, and the pace is a bit slow. But of course, if you have organizations that are able to help us speed up the pace, it will be very good. What is for the Nepal NSO? Asking about the quality and the kind of questionnaire being used. Actually, the questionnaire is very important in this. And so when we are looking at what is coming from out there, other than looking at the 6 aspects that I talked about, you'd also want to see how the study was designed. What kind of questionnaire was used? What are the training materials that were used, so that you get convinced that what you're talking about will meet the quality. Otherwise, it is not out of desperation that we are clearing statistics as good for official use. It has to be based on something that we are sure would be able to add value in the process. And the last one is about how long does it take from Nigeria, how long does it take to clear what is coming from the NSOs. From my experience, we have cleared a number of institutions to Aweza, Kenya, the PMA, that is performance monitoring. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So we have cleared a number of institutions, and for those institutions, it only takes a very short time because we bring on board. If it is on education, we bring on board education experts, the sampling team, and all that, so that they are able to go through the whole process. If it is on health, we do the same. So it does not take a long time to have that one done, but it's a process. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We need a whole other session to address all these issues. Frida, 10 seconds. No more
So
10 seconds.
I will just respond to what Peter has asked. What does it mean for us as CGD producers, or if we have a global framework? Of course, it means we can achieve scale in what we are doing, because there will be a global guidance note. It means that we can mobilize political will, and you know what political will means in the development space, but also that we have a good shot in getting data that represent the marginalized populations that have been left out. Now we have a good shot to bring that data in.
Thank you so much. I think the panelists deserve a big round of applause because they raised so many important issues. And all their comments were terribly inspiring, and listening to their experiences. I would really encourage you to continue this conversation, and please join us. We have a collaborative that's just been freshly launched. Join us. There is so much work that needs to be done. As previous speaker said, we really need to change the way we think of data throughout the data value chain. Who owns those data? Citizens have to be part of the process throughout. And so it's really for all of us, especially official statisticians, we need to change and shift the way we see this. So thank you so much. Thanks for the useful questions, wonderful questions, and great engagement from everybody. Please go to the plenary, high-level plenary session now.
可以放第3个视频，谢谢。
In the future, greater recognition and support for citizen-generated data by governments and the service providers can lead to more equitable and effective development programs and policies.
The national statistics offices can provide the space and collaborate with civil society and community-led organizations to generate citizen-generated data for filling data gaps. I also feel it important to develop global standards and guidelines for citizen-generated data. And most of all, I would feel the need for additional investments in building the capacities of civil society and community to build robust data for evidence generation and policy analysis.
So it can provide a vital insight into the official statistics of the future and allow official statisticians to think about how they can incorporate information on those issues into their official data collection practices.
That way we have something